This is one of the greatest casts assembled in television history, let alone in Zoom history. Welcome to Paley Front Row, presented by Citi. I'm Josh Wigler, entertainment writer for The Hollywood Reporter. Before we get to our program, I'd like to take a moment to ask you to support the Paley Center, whose mission is to present great conversations with the cast and producers of critically acclaimed shows like Westworld. The Paley Center is a nonprofit organization dedicated to celebrating excellence in media. To help them continue to bring you shows like this one, please go to paleycenter.org to donate right now. Thank you. Today, we welcome the cast and producers of Westworld, whose recently completed third season posed important questions about free will and consciousness. To discuss this fascinating and inventive show, we're joined by creators Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, executive producer Denise Tay, and stars Evan Rachel Wood, Thandie Newton, Jeffrey Wright, Tessa Thompson, and Ed Harris. Thank you all for being here. And on a personal note, thank you all for giving me an excuse to dress up like a civilized human being. Feels nice to feel like an adult again. I don't know if I'm alone in this feeling, but it's great. It's lovely to...
Pants, right?
Yes, well, I'm not going to stand up.
From this, from the waist up.
Yes, everybody stay seated. Don't give up the game.
So true.
Absolutely. And it's funny, the last normal thing that I did before our new normal was participate in the Westworld junket out in Los Angeles. And during one of those conversations, Thandie, I believe it was with you actually, I remember you telling me that the vision for season 3 was part of Jonah and Lisa's initial vision for the series. As somebody who operated not only in Westworld, but also very prominently in Shogun World in season 2, and now you're getting to embody this whole new world in season 3. What struck you most about the setting? Did it feel like a different show, or was there still that sameness that carried over from the first 2 seasons?
Oh no, it's like the rocket took off, you know, and we've been fueling that rocket for 2 seasons. And, you know, there was talk in the past seasons, I hope I'm not saying too much, but we had hoped to travel in season 2, but, you know, we stayed in pretty much in California and Utah. And this time we went to Singapore, we went to Spain. Our baby show was all grown up and traveling around the world, you know, and the results to this, it's like, you know, Dr. Frankenstein just cut and pasting the world to fit this new world that these guys had envisioned. And it's both beautiful and awful. I mean, and I didn't get to even go to Utah in seasons 1 and 2. I feel like it's only fair that I got to go to both Spain and Singapore.
That's great. As a means of driving the conversation today, our panelists selected their favorite scenes from season 3 to fuel our reflections on Westworld. In other words, this is your spoiler warning. If you have not finished season 3, you may be in trouble here. So maybe get about finishing that business before proceeding any further. And our first scene, it was handpicked by you, Jonah, and it's a fitting place to start, as it comes straight out of the season premiere. It's our first look at not only the new world, but also our first look at Aaron Paul as the pivotal new player in this world, Caleb Nichols. Let's take a look.
Been a long time. Too long. Look, I can talk or I can just listen. Whatever you like. You keeping your head above water?
Yeah. Running fiber pays the bills. Almost.
How was it being back there? Back home?
Over here? I don't know. He said the way the army was run, algorithms, that's the way everything was going to be someday. Better living through technology. And some things are better, but I don't know.
The sequence we just played, I have too many favorite scenes from the season to pick any one as a favorite, but that one represents, you know, if you look shot by shot by shot, it's some of it is Singapore, some of it is Los Angeles, and it all cuts together beautifully. If you watch that shot very carefully, it's, you know, Aaron's walking into the city, and what a trusting, lovely actor to come to our crazy show. And I think on the first day, be subjected to the director sending a drone at his head. If you watch the shot very carefully, there's a lovely gentleman named Steve who's walking as an extra towards the camera. As soon as the camera flies over the top of his head, Steve turns around, runs, and grabs it, pulls it out of the air, and operates it as a handheld shot. So it was, the crazy things we ask our amazing cast and crew to do, and that they deliver day in, day out to us. That's how we get the show, and it's a lot of fun making it every season.
Evan, I wanted to ask you, as somebody who has so many scenes with Aaron this year, as the character he's playing, Caleb, as a viewer, so much of the tension this year resides in not knowing whether Dolores authentically wants to empower this man and partner up with him, or if she's using him as a pawn for her own means and potentially his own self-destruction. And I think it was a really powerful way to get inside the formation of a language of sorts between two species. What did you feel that relationship brought to the show this season? And what do you hope people are getting out of it as we reflect on the state of our own world?
I think, obviously, the only experiences Dolores has had with human beings really has been in the park. She's been out of the park a few times, but it's still sort of in this, master-slave kind of a dynamic where she's just under people's control, and she's being sort of passed around to not the best people in the world. So I think for her to finally be stepping out on her own and to be a fish out of water and to get a different experience of the outside world taught her that it wasn't just really the park that was keeping her trapped. It was an entire system. And then, when she meets Aaron Paul's character, which we find out, of course, later that she's had a brief encounter with, and is able to sort of make his own choices and is good at heart. I think it just shows the audience in some ways that the host can sometimes be more human than even human beings, and freer and able to really choose. And in some ways, I think she realizes that human beings are possibly more enslaved than the machines are. And I think I loved the dynamic, and I loved, in sort of the classic formula of Westworld, that you think it's going to go one way and then it goes a different way. And so I think everyone was shipping us in the beginning, and it actually turned out to be sort of a maternal relationship, this kind of like Terminator John Connor situation where she had to protect him at all costs. He was the greatest hope for humanity. But it was difficult to play for me, purely because she is so hard to read, and she has to play her cards very close to her chest because she's been evolved to survive, and that's what she has to do. And so you had to find a way to be appealing enough to Aaron's character while not giving away to the audience that, she's actually kind of the good guy.
Oh, absolutely. So season 3, it brings us into the human world for the first time, or at least the first time in a sustained fashion. I see you season 2 flashback scenes. I remember you. But it's not our first glimpse at human characters in Westworld. Ed Harris plays William, better known to some as the Man in Black, philanthropist and Delos company man most days of the week, dreaded gunslinger of a sci-fi Western theme park on other deadlier days of the week. In this scene selected by Ed, we see how William is dealing with the repercussions of season 2, in which his pursuit of knowledge brought him to the brink of ruin. And in this moment, he's ready to take that ruin by the horns. Let's take a look.
Dad.
You're not real.
I guess I'm not anymore. Which means you're stuck with me.
You asked me if I chose what happened to you. The truth is, yes, I did. I thought you were a host. That was my choice. And so maybe now you're my penance. But that's a choice too. I'm gonna walk out that door, and I am choosing to leave you behind me.
I was always Daddy's little girl. And you taught me patience, Dad. I'll be waiting for you.
it was a new territory for the Man in Black. I mean, you haven't seen him for a while. He's kind of losing his mind in his house there, and then his daughter shows up, and she confronting him, twisting his brain around, and he doesn't know whether he's coming or going at this point. And plus, he realizes, he's confronted with the fact that he murdered her, in the season 2, and it's just a very bewildering time for him. I love working with Katja, by the way.
Jonah, I'll ask you. One of the exciting things I think as a fan of Westworld as a series, and knowing its roots in the Michael Crichton film, is that the Man in Black is really a subversion of that Yul Brynner character, the gunslinger from the original movie, and taking that killer robot and turning him into a killer man. And here by the end of this season, you've made that jump, right? You've made that jump from Man in Black as Killer Man in Black to now Host in Black. What excites you about the prospects of exploring that version of Ed's character? And of course, Ed, I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Oh, it's incredibly exciting. I love the idea that in struggling with this question of whether or not, struggling with the legacy of what he's created and set in motion by rescuing this park from financial ruin and franchising it, trying to control it for so long, and struggling with this inner question of, are his actions truly free? That he winds up tumbling through the season and winding up in, and I'm a big believer in being guided by irony, that he winds up becoming the thing that he's controlled for so long. And on a visceral level, I just can't wait to watch Ed kill everyone.
Ed, how about you on a visceral level? Can you not wait to kill everybody on this?
Well, I just got to say, I was really happy to get back in my Man in Black suit and out of my white suit, which I spent most of the season in. And I have no idea what they have planned for me as Mr. AI Man in Black, but we shall see. I'm teamed up with Tessa, I know, so hopefully we can do some rightful damage somewhere.
I look forward to it. Speaking of rightful damage, I think that's a good segue into our next scene, because we're talking, very existentially about Westworld. That's appropriate. This is an existential show, but it's visceral, it's fierce, the violent delights and all of that. And Thandie, I'm so thankful that you selected this scene. This is a scene from the penultimate episode of the season Past Upon, in which we see a few old friends reunite as bitter foes. Let's watch.
Hello, Musashi. Sato. Dolores. Whatever it is you are.
You and Maeve have had some practice selling yourselves, but I thought you'd be more selective about a buyer.
Maeve is not for sale, and neither am I. I'm here because of you. And you alone. Your actions. Your plans.
My plans are well underway. You should run back to your master and tell him he's too late.
Thandie, you're not featured in this scene, but it's the one you selected as your favorite for the conversation, and I'm dying to know why. The floor is yours.
Oh, come on. It's the beginning of episode 7. It's the penultimate episode. They wait till 7 to see Clementine in a way, she starts off in a shrouded, you don't even know who she is. And then there's Hanario, and we've got Hiro, Musashi, beloved characters from season 2 who made such a mark. And here they are being used in a completely different way, like a 360 turn on who they are. You know, Dolores and Maeve, but neither of us are there. And I had to do a scene where I was with Musashi, in like episode 3, I think, where he kills Maeve. And I'm looking into the eyes, or Maeve's looking into the eyes of this character who she loved almost as much as Hector, because he was the doppelganger. And now these, I don't know if I can swear on the Paley Center, these showrunning make Musashi into the killer of Maeve. I mean, but I love that. I love the ingenuity and how, you know, it's not about manipulating us. It's not about just, oh, what would be the most outlandish character to use in this sequence? It's so artfully done. And I love this scene. I love this sequence because you're seeing Clementine, you're seeing Hanario, you're seeing Musashi. We haven't seen Hanario and Clementine at any other moment. To me, it was everything that Westworld can be. The confidence, the ambition, the wit, the ingenuity, and the way she, I mean, I know it's gross, and I think it's much more kind of Hong Kong style filmmaking, but the way she slices around his middle. I mean, you know, I'm not a gory girl, but it was pretty sensational. It really was.
It really
I loved
was.
it. I just thought it was, to me, it just said so much about how ingenious this show is and how it can make characters, just the delight that we as actors, the delight. You know, I'm sure if Angela had known, okay, you're going to be in 1 or 2 scenes this year, this season, but then she gets to do that. It's so cool. It really is.
In season 3, it wasn't just that we were so excited to see what this new world looked like. In the time between seasons 2 and 3, the collective Westworld nerd hive mind, of which I am a proud member, worked tirelessly to figure out who Tessa Thompson was going to be playing this year, given the death of her human character, Charlotte Hale, and the birth of someone new, a vehicle for Dolores at first, and then, as it turns out, a version of Dolores herself, before becoming someone else entirely on her own. In this scene selected by Tessa, we joined the new Charlotte Hale as she questions the nature of her own reality.
Where were you? I can't always be there to hold your hand. What's wrong? Who am I? You know who you are. All this time, pretending, living her life, her skin. I feel like I'm changing. Get up. No. What the fuck is happening to me? Analysis, turn off your emotional affect. Get up, follow me. Negotiate a room in this hotel, now, on a quiet floor.
Working. Room secured. Floor 14, suite 7.
Buy out the rooms on either side.
Negotiating.
In case you have to kill me. It won't come to that.
Tessa, nobody's role was more shrouded in secrecy this year than yours. And even once it became apparent that Charlotte was a copy of Dolores, I think the full scope of the character's journey, that losing Charlotte's family, that losing her cornerstone, losing her only tether to humanity, would kind of make her the heir apparent, maybe, to the war on mankind. It just wasn't clear. What were some of your biggest takeaways from the journey this year and the examination of our human nature through the birth of someone new?
I think the central question, first of all, I picked the clip just because I really love working with Evan so much, and I thought that our journey was so fascinating. Denise, I think maybe you wrote this stage direction, maybe, but in one of our stage directions, there was this line that said their relationship has no human corollary. It's just something that you've never seen before, which I thought was so fascinating. And it's just a joy to get to work with Evan and steal from her, and she's so giving. So I really love that this season. But I think something that's really interesting, that's posited, the question that's posited in Charlotte's journey this season has to do with like how much your circumstance changes you. That we as humans can have our essential nature, in the host case, our coding, but how much does your experience sort of change those things about you? And I think she begins with Dolores's sort of journey and mission. And then because of proximity to family and to humanity and to her own pain that is felt, I think she changes over the course of the season. And it was so cool when we shot sort of the birth of this new being. Jonah, you were really wanted the take on it to be really vulnerable. It was almost like playing like a baby that's been born and doesn't know what's happening. And it was, I think for most shows, if you're an actor, sort of the third season is the season that you kind of like know the thing, and for me, it was like this season, I was like, what is this? I don't even know how to be a host. I'm like, getting to lean on Evan and ask her questions about what that has been like for her. And yeah, I loved getting to play all the different Charlottes this season. Sometimes she's Dolores, sometimes she's Dolores. And then by the end of the season, I think she's a whole new thing, which doesn't have a name yet. So I'm looking for the fans to send suggestions for what that could be.
We're working on it. Lisa, I would love to ask you a little bit about the goals with the Charlotte character this year. I think that was one of, certainly to me as a viewer, one of the great surprises of the finale was kind of this morality switcheroo, where you're thinking for so much of the season that Dolores' intentions for humanity may not be so good. It turns out she's really fighting for mankind, and Charlotte, by losing what she loses a couple of episodes earlier, has taken sort of this turn towards the dark side. What were you hoping to shore up in us emotionally and even thematically at the series at large?
I think, especially with female characters, it's something that I think is really fascinating, is that you're used to a lot of multitudes being able to be contained in male protagonists or anti-heroes or whatever. They can be angry and vengeful, but also sweet and tender. And I've always found that it's harder with female characters, in part because I think of the way society is structured, to portray that full spectrum without people trying to say, no, that person has to be this. And once they're that forever, And it was one of the reasons why I was so drawn to Westerns initially, is that in Westerns, you see women often, and there are exceptions, of course, but as side characters, right? It's the virgin or the whore or the good girl who's waiting at home, or the plotting, madam. And I think that there's something really refreshing about seeing our wonderful, gifted actors just embody what is a naturalistic kind of human evolution, to get angry and be vengeful when oppressed, to still have tenderness and warmth, to sometimes be inscrutable to others, to be villainized when you are not necessarily full of villainy, to be able to have aims both noble and potentially corrupted in one soul, and to see all of that in its fullness. And so for me, there are no necessarily villains or heroes in Westworld. They are just people and creatures trying to struggle to be true to themselves, to transcend suffering, and to leave some kind of impression on this world. And so I don't know, I kind of think we're all like that.
I'd love to move on to another character who confronts a cornerstone this season, and that comes in the form of the season finale. Through Charlotte's character, we see the despair that can come from the eradication of a host's cornerstone. And through Bernard, we see the other side of that coin and the beauty that can come from the pain in the past when you look it in the eye, which is exactly what happens in this scene from the season finale, selected by Jeffrey Wright, as Bernard comes face to face with one of the most important people in his life, or at least a version of his life. Let's take a look.
Do I know you? Yes. In a way. We knew each other in another life. I think an old friend wanted me to visit you. To make amends before it's too late.
Amends for what?
For how I left things with you. With him. I think about him every day. Charlie.
Jeffrey, you've had so many spinning plates to keep in the air on Westworld, playing versions of Bernard across more than one time period, even playing another character entirely in Arnold. And here, Bernard is meeting Arnold's wife. And even if she's not Bernard's wife, she represents the most powerful moments and memories of his being. It's such an incredibly touching scene. It was really cathartic to watch as a viewer. Was it cathartic as an actor for you? Jeffrey, did I lose you?
Oh, no, I'm kidding.
Oh, damn it. I was like, bring yourself back online.
Oh, my God.
Well played. Well played. Right.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, for me, the culmination of a lot. And the catharsis was part of it, but it was more about a filling up of many things, information, sensations, ideas, longings. And so when I walked, I read the scene, obviously. That was one thing, but then walking onto the set to rehearse it, I was just kind of overwhelmed. I was just like, whoa, because I was empathetic to the idea to Bernard's kind of realizing all of these things that had been really just abstract, seemingly real, but essentially programmed. And for him to be able to kind of touch in the flesh data that had been programmed inside of him, and to be able to move through a space that was so intimate for him, but at the same time so abstract and distant, was just really, really powerful. And so I'm not sure if it was cathartic as much as it was illuminating and really enlightening. And I think for him as well, it becomes an opportunity to touch those things that he had been unable to prior. But as well, it was an opportunity for him to learn lessons about humanness in a very direct way, because I think that ultimately is the gift that she offers him that is unexpected for him. Yes, there's the experience of encountering this woman finally, and this woman being responsible for the son that he's been programmed to believe is his, and all of these things. But it was really this offering of thoughts about humanity that allowed him to process these terribly difficult cornerstone emotions and cornerstone experiences in a way that in some ways is freeing. So yeah, there was a lot there. My head blew up when I walked onto that set. It was just a rush of things that came over me, and I think for him as well.
Well, Denise, you're one of the people responsible for that rush of things as the co-writer of the finale. Can you talk a little bit about what you wanted to express? Because it's such an important moment for one of the most important characters on the show. And it feels like a real thematic statement on what you're trying to express here on Westworld.
We talked a lot in the room, and Jonah wrote that scene and wrote it so beautifully. And we talked a lot in the room about this, having this kind of moment of grace. And I think it's a meditation on love and loss, and how you can at once hold on to the things that are you and that you love the most, but also how you can move forward. And it was very important to us, for Jeffrey's character, for Bernard, to be able to move into the next world, to be able to go into the Valley Beyond and move into Slime. So it was one of those scenes that we felt like was very pivotal for his character. And you know, it's interesting to hear Jeffrey talk about it for his experience that he had on set. I was sitting there next to Jennifer Getzinger, who directed it, and there was, I don't know, Jeffrey, if you remember this, but there was one take that you did, and you said Charlie, you said Bernard's son's name, and your voice cracked. And in that moment, you know, we both, Jennifer and I, looked at each other, and it was just like that feeling of how one word can contain, when it's something so important to you, like your child, a multitude. You know, it can contain a world. It can bring you to your knees. And you absolutely brought us to our knees in that scene. It was just amazing.
One of the things that is very palpable to me is how much you all enjoy watching each other's work on this show. And I think that, Thandie, you selecting this scene really speaks to that to me. Tessa, I'm going to throw this to you, if you can, because I know that you studied Evan's performance as Dolores so much to inform your work as your new character. Can you speak to this idea of just like the joy of being on Westworld, and whether it's when you're on set getting to watch these other actors work, or it's after the fact and you're watching the show on a Sunday night or whenever you're watching it, and you get to see, Angela Sarafian going toe-to-toe with Hiro Sanada.
The experience of working on the show has been surreal for me from the start. I mean, because in the beginning, I worked a lot with Anthony Hopkins, which is like, and Jeffrey. So those were my scene partners a lot. Those were my scene partners a lot in the first season. So it's always been surreal. And honestly, I never thought that I thought for sure I was being set up to have a real epic death at the end of season 1. So the fact that I'm still hanging out is remarkable to me. And more than just the fact that these actors are so gifted that I get to work with, is that they're so generous. You know, I think for a lot of actors, what you do is sort of a mystery, and you sort of show up and do it. And the thing that was so incredible to me, particularly about Evan, is her generosity in letting me know how she works. And not just letting me watch her and giving me tips, but honestly, sometimes I would text her at like absurd hours and be like, can you say this line for me? And she would send me a voice memo of her saying it. So like such, generosity from everybody. And also just to get to work, as Ed said, I think we're teamed up next year. He's like, to get to watch him work, someone that has such dexterity as an actor. He's terrifyingly brilliant, and to get to work in his company is just a dream. So I can't say enough about it. And this season actually is the first season that I've watched as the show is airing. I've typically just watched the whole season on my own and binged it. And I had the opportunity to do that again before we started shooting this season, because I went back to watch mostly Evan, but to watch this season last year in preparation to sort of play Dolores again. But it's just been incredible to watch it this year, because I'm surrounded, my friends and family are legitimate fans. And this season I really had to not spoil it for them, because I would I just even, they didn't even want to know where we were shooting. Like if I was going to meet my stepmom after work or something, like everything felt like it could potentially be a spoiler. And I remember when we shot this scene of me getting burnt up, I had to get out of makeup, and it took a couple hours. And I remember texting that to my family, because I was supposed to have dinner with them. And they said, no, we don't want to know. We don't want to know. So it does feel like getting to work on something where I'm a fan. I'm such a fan of everyone's work, and watching this season, especially being so invested inside of the narrative and getting to watch in real time as audience members are doing it, has really been just tremendous.
In the spirit of having such spoilable content on a show like Westworld and having to hang on to secrets, I have to give a shout out to my colleague and one of my great Westworld minds with whom I nerd out about this show with quite a bit, Joe Garfine. As we were speaking in advance of the season finale, she said something along the lines of, maybe they'll kill Dolores. I don't think that that's something that the show would really do, though. But here we are at the end of the season, and this is the scene Evan has selected as her favorite scene from season 3. This is from the season finale, and it would appear that it is our final look at Dolores Abernathy as we have come to know her.
Maybe they can find it themselves. But only if you pick a side, Maeve. There is ugliness in this world. Disarray. I choose to see the beauty.
Evan, I'd love to know a little bit about your journey with Dolores' journey this year, and what your conversations were like with Jonah and Lisa about how this was going to resolve. And once you got to this moment, returning to the blue dress, returning to Westworld as a setting, getting to bring this character back to the start in so many ways as you're advancing her in this powerful ending, conclusive way. Just some of your thoughts on all of that.
Well, it was such a loaded question. I'm going on this entire journey with her for 3 seasons has been such a roller coaster. So getting to go back even to the set that we started on, that's the tree that I've been filming under since the first season. So that was, it was already so loaded, even just being in the spot where we started. And then to finally get to work with Thandie in this way, it's one of the reasons why it's my favorite scene. I think these 2 powerful, brilliant characters have been pitted against each other because that's what corrupt systems do. They take the good people and they turn them against each other. That's how they stay in power. So to be held back for so long and then to be finally able to come together and for these beings to really see each other and really understand each other. I think the first few takes that we did, Thandie and I just could not stop weeping. and we had to sort of pull it back because obviously it's got to be right for the scene, but we were just so moved by not just being able to share this moment together, but by the words that she was finally able to speak and to see where she has ended up after all of her experiences, after being tortured for so long, for finally breaking free and then being in this sort of vengeful, violent space. And for me as an actor to pour your heart into, the original Dolores in the blue dress, and then to have her change, and then to see the reactions from the audience, and to feel this confusion about Dolores and some people just hating her and some people rooting for her. And there were times I was so torn having to play certain scenes and do things where I knew she would be unlikable because I love her so much. But I thought it was so profound because this is what we do to survivors, and we assign actions to their motives, and we punish the people that speak out, and we are scared by the people that want to change things and that challenge the status quo and that challenge the systems and that want to bring them down. And I think we get wrapped up in how scary that is, and we forget why they're doing it in the first place. And I think we can be wrapped up. I think where she ends up at the end of this journey after all of her experiences is she says this in that last scene, is that, I think I was torn between two emotions, and now I understand that I'm not free if everyone isn't free. And I understand that people can change, but they have to have the truth. And the truth is hard. And I think that's her final gift to humanity. And then it's up to them what they will do with it. So anyway, getting to play that scene and having to sit in this space where it is Dolores in the blue dress, and it is the one, from the start that we remember, but she's also mixed with all of her new experiences now and this sort of new personality that she has. So finding a way to balance the essence of the Dolores that we know and love, but now she has this wisdom about her, and she's grown so much and she's evolved so much, but this purity is still there. And to see the respect and the love that these two women had for each other, and to see her trust Maeve in that way and sort of pass the baton over to her, and to willingly let herself be sacrificed, I think just speaks volumes to who Dolores really is. And it was very satisfying finally getting to end up there, and to see what her intentions really were. I'm very curious to see where we go from here, because I don't know. But it was such a moving scene to do. I loved working with Thandie. We're such great friends, and talk about a giving actor. She was just, all I have to do is look at her and we were there. And to be given such beautiful words to say, I was just so grateful and moved by the whole experience. It was very profound.
I think it's a great way to lead into wrapping this up. On behalf of the Paley Center, I want to thank all of you for joining us for such a thoughtful conversation about Westworld. I also want to thank all of you at home for watching, and of course, our sincerest gratitude and best wishes to all on the front lines facing this pandemic. I speak for all of us here when I hope you are staying safe, and thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.